This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, well then I'll call the meeting to order again.
John,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna, not to try to steal your thunder, but just because it's a public info meeting, I'll call it to order.
okay, good.
And
'Cause
just
what I was-
remind.
all I was going to do was call it to order and hand it over to you guys. So this works perfect.
Just to remind everyone in attendance, so this is a meeting for members of the public to ask questions about the official plan and that sort of thing. And we'll go from there. Ron is on the line. He's our, yep, there's Ron. So Ron, I'm not sure exactly how you want to do it. I know we have one person there, Randy Byad, signed up. That's not Randy I'm looking at, but I'm sure he's there. But that's one person that has signed up, and there's also a caller, so I'm sure that person has signed up as well. So I'm not sure, maybe Ron, if you want to, I don't know if you want to do a brief presentation. It's kind of drop-in style, so I don't really want someone to miss what you may have said if they come in later. So.
Yeah, Lindsay, it's Harry here representing HY Construction.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Harry.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, Lindsay, thank you. Yeah, I do have a brief presentation. It would probably take 7 or 8 minutes long. I'm not sure how else really to have this, because I've in a typical open house setting, we would have a series of documents up on a board. People could walk around and ask questions, but obviously that's not possible. So why don't I just start, I guess, and if there are anybody else joins us, and if we have to sort of rehash some of the stuff a little bit later, we can possibly do that. Shall I begin?
I think so. I mean, we mostly have members of council and other staff in attendance, but there are now 3 people from the public. So maybe just give it another 30 seconds or a minute and see if anyone else joins. We did have, I think, 5 or 6 people that reached out and signed up. So I just don't want people to miss it. But like you said, it's kind of a different atmosphere when we're doing this electronically as opposed to in person. So yeah, we might just have to kind of skip back and maybe repeat the same sort of thing if people, I don't want to derail anyone that has questions. So
understood.
How are you this evening, Mr. Bai?
Good, Brian, and yourself?
Just right.
Good.
Just right. Another lovely day in paradise.
Yeah, very much so.
In all fairness, Brian, you're half left too, not just right.
Okay, all right. I like to think I'm a little balanced. Some would say unbalanced, but that's okay. How are you, Ron?
So,
I'm good, thank you.
I think I just see another person joining there. It's very different doing this electronically, but anyway, I think you could go ahead, Ron, and if any members of the public have any questions or anything following Ron's presentation, we can go back and further clarify that sort of thing. So yeah, I think go ahead, Ron. Do you want me to make you presenter? Do you want to share your screen or just speak to the document was in the agenda?
Yeah, I don't think there's any, right now there's no need to share a screen. I mean, if there's something specific that comes up, say on a schedule, and you have the ability to share it, Lindsay, because I don't. In other words, I don't have the mental capacity to know how to do that.
I'll probably bounce to Alicia because she's better at it than I am.
Yeah, so sure, I'll begin. This is going to be somewhat of a brief presentation. So my name is Ron Davidson, and I am a planner. I work in the private sector, but I have been retained by the township to help them prepare a new official plan. And tonight is what we call the open house. And I'll get into the process in a few minutes. But I'm going to spend just a couple minutes now explaining what an official plan is, exactly why we have one, and then what we've accomplished to date with this new official plan and where we're headed after tonight. After that, and again, I won't be very long here, there will be an opportunity for everyone who cares to speak to do so. They can ask questions or express concerns or just make comments, what have you. So let's start off by asking the question and then answering the question, what is an official plan? Well, simply an official plan is a land use planning document containing the town's goals and objectives and policies. And that document is intended to guide development and growth in the township over about a 25-year time horizon. And the official plan, what it also does is it manages and directs physical development within the context of social, economic, built and natural environmental matters in the township. The next question is, well, don't we already have an official plan? And the answer is yes, we do. We have one that was approved back in 2006, so it's about 15, 16 years of age, which is kind of getting long in the tooth, if you will. It has been amended. The current official plan has been amended on several occasions in order to keep it up to date, but it needs to be further updated once again in order to reflect, among other things, a new official plan at the county level that was approved back in 2018 and came into effect in 2019. And then the recent version of the provincial policy statement, which came into effect in 2020. So instead of keep amending the old official plan, there comes time where you just gotta bite the bullet and come up with a new one. It's like spending money on an old car. Eventually you just gotta come up with a new one, and that's what we're doing here tonight. It's a lot easier basically to have a new one rather than try to go through the process of amending every section or every relevant section of the old official plan. So on that note, we've been working on this for 5 or 6 months. I myself have been working closely with your planner, Clint Stredwick, and we've also had some very good discussions with council during this time. And council has provided some clear direction on a series of different topics. So the version of the official plan that is before us now, tonight, and that's the same version that's been posted online for 3 weeks, is what I guess I would call this the second draft. And there's going to be additional drafts before the final document is ready for council's adoption and ultimately the county's approval. But the draft version you have tonight, it has been sent out to various agencies for comment, and that would include the Conservation Authorities, Saugeen Valley and Grand River, the County of Grey, the school boards, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MTO, the Aboriginal groups, Saugeen and Ojibwe Nation, and the two Métis groups, and of course municipal staff. And we've asked those agencies for comment. Very, very important to get comments back from agencies and the public. And those comments have started to trickle in. We've got a 9-pager from the County of Grey Planning Department and some comments from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. And I believe we've got 1 or 2 other pieces of correspondence as well. So to the same extent as agency comments are important, so are comments from the members of the public, because this will affect you. So yeah, anything that we hear tonight from the members of the public will be given consideration and could easily result in further changes to the official plan. And there's no doubt that there's going to be changes made to the official plan as a result of the agency comments as well. So I'll circle back to the process in just a minute. So the official plan, just so everyone understands, has to conform to the upper tier official plan, being the Grey County official plan. So there's going to be a lot of similarities. This doesn't mean that our official plan has to be the exact same as this. But to be clear, it cannot be more permissive. We could take the approach if we wanted to be more restrictive, but we can't allow for stuff that the County of Grey official plan doesn't allow us to. So to the same extent, there's another document in Ontario called the Provincial Policy Statement. And that's, if you want to call it an official plan of the province, you could do that. What it does is it provides us direction, in some cases in a very general sense, in other cases a very specific sense, on a number of matters that are near and dear to the heart of the province. They want us to protect good agricultural land, or they call it prime agricultural land. They want us to protect areas of known sand and gravel deposits for possible future extraction. We have to protect the natural environment, specifically wetlands, woodlands, valleylands, wildlife habitat, fish habitat, threatened and endangered species, and areas of natural and scientific interest. Now, the provincial policy statement also provides policies pertaining to housing. We want to make sure that we look after everyone's housing needs by providing affordable and attainable housing in the form of ownership and rental housing. Not everybody can afford to own a house, but everybody should have a place to live. The province also supports type of development. It's a buzzword, if you want to call it that, infilling or intensification and the efficient use of municipal services. What does that mean? It means that development has to be more than just your typical detached dwelling. Now the province is pushing, and they've been doing this for a number of years, we have to allow for a healthier density, if you will, semis, townhouses, apartments, secondary dwellings, etc. So we have to be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Now, to explain what's in the town's official plan, and I'm not going to go into much detail, and I really hope that anybody who is listening has had a chance to visit the document on site. But the official plan contains schedules, which is another word for maps, and then the written text. Now the schedules, Schedule A, for example, places every property in at least one land use designation, and then the text provides the policies for what we can do within those land use designations. Now Dundalk is the other small urban centers are supposed to be the focal point for new development. That is, development should occur, generally speaking, in the urban areas and not so much in the countryside. Now, Dundalk, of course, having municipal water and sanitary sewers, will see the bulk of the development, and we have been seeing that. In fact, if you've, unless you're new to the area or you haven't been in Dundalk in a couple of years, you would know that Dundalk has seen a tremendous amount of growth in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Now, outside the urban areas, this is important. The official plan, just like the county official plan, divides the countryside into basically two designations: agricultural and rural. Now, the agricultural designation applies to what has been determined to be prime agricultural land, and that's been determined by the county over the years. And then the rural designation applies to lands that aren't of such great agricultural capability. And I should note that this mapping is not changing. So if you're wondering how we came up with the rural and agricultural designation, I'm telling you now that we've simply reapplied the existing mapping, and that is consistent with the county. Now, and just to give you a quick example of what the difference between the agricultural designation and the rural designation would be. In the agricultural designation, because it's considered to be prime agricultural land, generally speaking, lot creation, for example, is severely limited. Basically, we need to see lots or farm parcels maintaining a lot size of about 100 acres. Really, the only consideration for lots smaller than that would be with what we call a surplus farmhouse, where it's possible to, if you're a bona fide farmer and you've acquired additional farms, and one of the farms has a house that's surplus to your needs, consideration can be given to sever that off. But that's pretty much it in the agricultural designation. And then in the rural designation, the policies are a bit more permissive. For example, with regard to severances, from an original 100-acre lot, you can either split that into two smaller farms or sever off a lot, like a non-farm residential lot, if you want to call it that. Just in general, the official plan contains mapping for where sand and gravel deposits are thought to exist. The policies of the official plan, as I mentioned earlier, are protective of these deposits. so that perhaps someday this material would be extracted, and that would be done through a gravel pit license. And yes, I'm aware of the fact that not everyone loves a gravel pit. That's a directive that comes straight down to from the province. The official plan mapping also shows, has identified a lot of our environmental features, such as wetlands, woodlands, and ANSIs, and there are policies that protect these features. And then there's some features that are not actually mapped, such as fish habitat, threatened and endangered species, significant wildlife habitat, and those features are also to be protected. Just moving along here, and I am coming near the end of my presentation here. We have the official plan now contains policies that are aimed at protecting the municipal wells that service Dundalk, and as well as one of the municipal wells that services Mount Forest. And yes, we realize that that's not in our township, but one of the municipal wells for Mount Forest is in Southgate, and we do have to be protective, and rightfully so. Like I said, some of the policies in the official plan are very specific, and some are more general in nature. And I could talk all night trying to explain everything that's in the new official plan, but we're not going to do that. Again, as I said at the onset, I really hope that people joining us tonight have had a chance to review the draft official plan. I just want to take about one more minute and explain the rest of the process. So there's no doubt, as I said earlier, there's going to be several changes made to the version of the OP official plan that you've already been looking at. It's, let's call it a work in progress, but we're certainly over the hump and we're getting there, and it's kind of exciting. And any changes, there will be changes that result from tonight's meeting, and again, as a result of agencies commenting on the application, on the official plan. In the near future, we will be producing the next version of the draft official plan, which will take into consideration your comments and the agency comments. And there may be some things that council has to discuss before we make some of those changes. What I can tell you though, on January 19th, council will be hosting another meeting just like this to discuss the new version or the next version of the draft official plan, and hopefully that will be the final version, but there might be some more tweaking after that. Now that meeting on January 19th, we're actually calling that a public meeting, as opposed to tonight's meeting, which we call an open house. Now, they're basically the same. It's an opportunity for everyone to speak, but the Planning Act requires us to call tonight's meeting an open house and the one on the 19th of January a public meeting. After the January 19th meeting, we're hoping to have an official plan that is ready for council to adopt. Now, I should point out that adopting is not the same as approval. And what I mean by that is council does pass a law that will adopt the official plan in late January, or perhaps maybe at the latest early February. But that official plan doesn't stop there. Once council adopts it, we send it off to the county, and the county is actually the approval authority. And the county has the approval to modify the official plan before they actually approve it. And there might be some last minute tweaking, but we don't expect too many changes from the county because we already know what changes they'd like to see in the next version of the official plan because they sent us their comments yesterday. I've been going through those today. And the last thing, once county approves the official plan, there will be a 20-day appeal period. If an appeal period is received, and hopefully there won't be one received, then unfortunately the Ontario Land Tribunal will get involved and they will have to rule on the appeal period. And that unfortunately delays things by months and months and months. So hopefully we can come up with a document that is genuinely satisfactory to everybody. That concludes my presentation. I know in a minute or so, members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak. I would ask, make it clear that it's important that each speaker clearly provide his or her name, and if necessary, spell it for the minutes unless we can see it on your screen there. And then lastly, if any member of the public wishes to receive notification of council's adoption of the new official plan in the new year, and then notification of the county's approval of the new official plan at a later date, you must submit a letter to the township or email making this request. And you can send that to, we can provide you with the contact information if you care to be notified. And thank you. I will hand that back over to staff, and I see Clint is wishing to interject here. Thank you.
Awesome job, Ron. Just a couple points I want to add, and maybe we can go through the schedules and just because I'm not sure even everyone has seen the schedules, maybe we can bring them up and talk about them just a little bit as we go along. The second thing, what Ron mentioned is very important. That last bit about the sending in a written notice or email if you want to receive notice of the decision. Saying that online or saying that to somebody verbally is not enough. It has to be in writing. So I just want to make that clear, because that will make our clerk's job easier when sending out the notices. So do you think, Alicia, could you maybe bring up the first schedule there, the draft schedule A?
Yep, just give me one moment here.
And then we can maybe entertain some questions if they have them specific to either the schedule or to policies that they've seen or whatnot. And then we can break it down into the other schedules as we go along.
Sure.
So this is their schedule A that Carolyn at the county helped us create, correct, Ron?
That is correct.
So you can see there's different land use designations on it. The orangey color is what Ron referred to as the prime agricultural lands, which are the class 1 to 3 soils. And the sort of green color is the hazard lands, which are they're not wetlands, but they're certainly not good lands. They maybe reflect floodplain, they may reflect steep slopes, valley lands, that sort of thing. And then you see the white, or sorry, not the white, the cream color, I guess it is, which is the rural lands of the municipality, which, as Ron mentioned, is a little less restrictive. And then the wetlands is the blue area there. And is there, what color, is that brown for the aggregates? It's hard to tell. It looks like brown for the mineral resource extraction areas, which are our gravel pits in the townships. So they're basically little brown squares located around the township that would reflect the existing gravel pit operations. So that's just a little overview of some of the designations that Ron alluded to, but I'll open it up, I guess, if anyone has any questions at this time.
And Clint, while we're waiting for questions, I'll just add that if you look closely, and I realize it's unless somebody has called this up on their own screen at home like I do on my other screen here, it's hard to see. But for the settlement areas, for most of the urban areas, there is a special map. So, for example, this is Schedule A map 1 for the whole township, but Schedule A map 2 is for Dundalk. And map 3 is for, I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time reading my own screen here. But anyways, there are, thank you, you're passing along there. There are a series of more detailed maps for the urban areas. And then in Dundalk itself, the the schedule for that not only identifies that area as an urban area, but breaks it down into residential, commercial, industrial, open space, etc.
So maybe Clint, I'll maybe go through the list of people that did sign up to speak maybe. I'm not sure if that's the best way, but because we
Sure.
might jump around a little bit, but I'm thinking just to get some questions on the floor, because that always sparks more questions. So, so first on my list was Megan Bodner. Megan, are you on the line? Okay, not hearing Megan. Angela Lawton. There's Angela.
Yeah, I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Jan Wilson.
I did see a Wilson there.
I see a D Wilson, and we can always come back to these people as well. I just want to make sure I go through this list of people, but John Woon.
Good evening, everybody.
John.
Mine's kind of a quick question, which will eventually lead to more later on once I've had time to look into this. I only found out about this meeting in the dying stages of being able to reserve time, and found out that this apparently is posted on a Facebook site that you can go to get this information. Excuse me. I don't subscribe to Facebook. So how does somebody in our region know about this? Is there something that comes out yearly that says, here's what's happening, here's a schedule for the year? Lindsay, I've had the opportunity to email you once or twice, and you've been fantastic with your replies, and not naming anybody else because this isn't what it is, but I have emailed other members and have never got a reply back. So I'm kind of at a loss as to what I'm supposed to do with things.
Okay, so I guess I'll start it's Ron Davidson speaking here, and Clint or anybody else wants to jump in. You know, that's always that question is often asked when you start working on a new project. You know, what's the best way to get a hold of people? The Planning Act does require notification in newspapers, so there were 2 ads run in consecutive weeks notifying people. And then it was whatever the township did to post it online. And I say this respectfully, it's hard. We can never seem to do enough to make everyone happy. But it is, I will say this though, it is everyone's, maybe they're not aware of this, but it's their sort of their civic duty, so to speak, to read the local newspapers and read the public notice section to see what applies, if anything, what upcoming events would apply to them, and specifically things like this, a new official plan and a new zoning bylaw. It is good though that you now know about it, but if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet because of the short notice that because you just found out about it, that is unfortunate. I will say this though. You can email me and phone me anytime you want, within reason, and I can try to answer more of your questions. So if you leave tonight's meeting and you have a more opportunity maybe later in the week on the weekend to look at the official plan and you have more questions, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much. And as for the papers, that's good information. We don't, again, it sounds bad. We don't subscribe to newspapers. It's not your problem, that's mine. We'll go out and we'll certainly look into these things going forward. But it's not something that would come out as sort of a yearly mailer to say, here's the upcoming schedule. It's either the newspapers or Facebook is what you're saying. Is that the short answer to it?
So if
Do you,
either me or Clint.
I was going to say, why don't you enlighten them about the other things that we did in terms of notification beyond the notification in the paper?
So the main source of our notification would be our website. It wouldn't be Facebook. Facebook is kind of secondary. We do that we have about 400 or 500 residents that do follow our Facebook page, but our main notification is the website. So
Okay.
that went out there, and it definitely went in the newspapers. But yeah, unfortunately there's not kind of like a yearly thing that we would put out. We do approve a council calendar every year, and this just so happened we needed a new official plan this year, so it has been on previous council agendas and that sort of thing. But the main thing that I would encourage you to look at is our website for the council calendar and our agendas and that sort of thing. And our public notices are always on the main site when you log in or when you go on the internet to our website. So that's what I would encourage. And I just want to add too, like we're not approving the official plan or anything tonight, so there is lots of time to still submit your comments. And it'll be brought back on January 19th to a public meeting that you could also participate in as well. So I just want to make it clear we're not approving anything tonight. This is just simply for exactly what we're doing here, just talking about it and asking questions. So we definitely encourage you can submit written comments or call Ron, ask more questions, participate in the public meeting in January, that sort of thing. But I would direct you mainly to our website. We'll have all of our formal notifications.
No, that's great. Thanks. It's my ignorance, my fault. I realize I just wasn't sure the best venue, but the website makes perfect sense. So I'll look forward to that in the future. Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to add one other thing there. We also posted it on the electronic signs throughout the township as well, as another way to try and get people to realize there's something going on. So that's another source. When there's important meetings, we try and advertise them in different ways, and we utilize those electronic signs if possible, and they were posted on there as well.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks. I haven't seen them in the Varney area, but I'll again keep my eyes open. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So the last person on our list was Randy Bai. I know Harry Bai is here in Randy's place, I believe. So Harry, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Lindsay. No, I just appreciate the opportunity to be involved, and I think everything is looking great so far, and just wanted to say thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Harry. So there is a couple other people on the line that they didn't sign up, but that won't at all deter you from speaking. So there is a few other people. If you just want to turn your mic on, if you have questions right now, you can go ahead.
Hello.
Hi there. Yeah, what's your name?
Oh, yeah, good evening. Yeah, it's Jeff Disson, D-I-S-S-O-N.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm just a question, because I was involved way back 10 years or so ago about the rural lands versus A1 farmland. I have a very wet and horrible field in the front, which I'd tile drain and didn't really have any effect. And I still see it shown as A1, much to my surprise, because I thought it had been changed to, excuse me, rural lands or hazard lands way back in time. So I wonder, how do I get that looked at as far as this being A1 farmland? Is there a contact? Is there somewhere you go to evaluate the land?
If I may, which way are you headed with this? Like, are you wanting it zoned or designated hazard?
Well, rural or open space or something. When I hadn't heard of the rural land, so I probably haven't looked at the. I seen it in the paper maybe a couple of weeks ago, so I really hadn't had the opportunity to kind of look at the new plan yet. So I just know that it's still, I believe, showing as A1 farmland. And like, basically, when I bought this, I farmed beside it. And when I bought this, it was willows and trees and shrubs, and I spent months just trying to make it into something that was sort of usable, right? So now I see this A1 farmland thing is going to perhaps be used against me. So I'm kind of wondering what I do about it. Just a little history there. When the old trailer park, there's a trailer park down the road from me, and back in 2008-9, when this was the last official plan that I knew of, I didn't know that whether there's been another interim one between then. But at that point, I came in because I was on the Economic Development Committee, and the commercial campground on the road from me, his zoning wasn't showing on the new official plan, and it showed the same as mine, as kind of a, I don't know, it was kind of a weird looking little design on it. I think might have been hazard land. It could have been open space. I can't remember now. I know the property owner down there didn't like the hazard land designation. So anyway, I brought him and the owner of the Jamore store in because he was getting a lot of business from there, and we had a bit of a talk with people, and then his C6 came back. And at that time, my one did not show A1 farmland. I didn't own it at the time. I lived beside it, and I had an offer on the place, and I was waiting to move to take over it. So of course I wasn't allowed to comment too much, but I did comment a bit about the EP land being taken out into my farmland, right? So I just kind of wonder what the process is. I had seen a land use map, or I don't know if it's an agricultural map, way back in the 90s showing kind of the quality of the soil around my farm. And there was only like a really good piece up in the middle high end of my own farm. So I'm just wondering where I go to have that looked at, or is it just that's just the way it is, or whatever. Just one last thing, the north property across from me still shows A1 farmland, and the A1 in the middle of the farm has been trees for 15 years, and the field across from my house, it's basically was left, so it's all willow, shrub, etc. So I don't see it as farmland, but it still shows as well as A1. Anyway, I'm just interested in any comments. Hopefully I haven't taken up too much time. I'm not a great speaker on this stuff. It makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So if I may, I can start, and then you can jump in if you like. So I'm not sure if you're switching back and forth between maybe zoning and official plan. Like the zoning bylaw uses the term A1. The official plan doesn't use A1. It's either agricultural or rural. Now you could have, like you're saying, if the lands are kind of wet, I'm wondering if they should rather be hazard as opposed to rural, but I almost say that tongue in cheek. And you can have, lands that are, Clint mentioned earlier about a soil classification that we have in Ontario on a scale of 1 to 7. 1, 2, and 3 are generally considered to be prime agricultural land. 4, 5, 6, and 7 are not so good. That was primarily the basis for the mapping that the county did years ago, showing the difference between the agricultural designation and the rural designation. But it was not intended to follow, the boundaries of 1, 2, and 3 precisely. We didn't want little pockets of 1 acre areas showing up on the official plan where it's rural and another 2 acres is agricultural. So they lumped them in Flint 200 or 300 hectare parcels, I believe. Not parcels, but polygons. So you could be in a situation where maybe your lands aren't the best, but all the lands around you are pretty good for agricultural purposes, and you get lumped in with the agricultural designation. You could also, though, have, even though you could be in a lower lying area susceptible to flooding, and you still could be, well, not susceptible to flooding, but maybe seasonal ponding, like in spring runoff, you could be in kind of maybe a little lower area, and you might think it should be rural, not agricultural, but the soils could be 1, 2, or 3, and therefore you're going to show as prime agricultural land. The last thing I'll say to answer your question, how do you go about doing this? You would, I guess you would start by speaking with the county, but they're going to have you hire an expert in agricultural land and like a soils expert, I suppose. And you'd have to go through a process of demonstrating that the mapping is wrong. And again, though, not just for your area, but for that general area. And then I suppose if you're taking it that far, you'd have to amend the county official plan and the local official plan as well. I know that sounds like a whole lot of red tape, but it's to be blunt, it's not easy to change the land use designations, and it would start with the county, not the local level. Clint, do you care to add anything to that?
Not a whole lot. I believe his lands are designated agricultural with some hazard area on it. So he would likely be looking to put it into a rural designation or something other than agriculture, which, as you say, is difficult to say the least. But again, it does start with the county in terms of we wouldn't be able to change our local plan to rural if the county one still reflected as prime agricultural. So it has to start with the county, and then we would be able to switch ours in accordance with that one.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. So I just wonder if anyone else on the line, I'm just trying to maybe spark some questions, if anyone needs some clarity that Ron or Clint could provide on anything, or a general area that they could focus on in just a review, or if anyone just speak up. There's one caller on the line. If you've called in, you can speak up as well. Harry, you look like you have something.
Yeah, if there was an opening, I was going to put forward the question. I was wondering if there could be some clarification on how the difference between classification of rural and prime agricultural affects severances on the farm parcel. Thank you.
Sure. I did briefly go over that during my presentation, Harry. So in the agricultural designation, the basic understanding is that lots are supposed to remain as large as possible to basically remain economically viable. And I know farmers will laugh at that when they'll tell you farming's never viable. But around here, like in Gray County, Bruce County, Huron County, that means about 100 acres. So if you're designated agricultural and you have 100 acres of land, you're not going to be, generally speaking, you're not going to be able to sever a lot off. If you have 200 acres of land, you get split it into two 100s. The only instance, and again, I mentioned this earlier, is if you were a bona fide farmer and you've acquired a property, and you've acquired another farm property, and you've acquired another one, and you're starting to gather houses that are surplus to your needs, you can possibly sever off, like say a 1 acre lot or whatever, large enough to contain that surplus farmhouse. And that's pretty much the only time you're going to get a severance. In the rural designation, if there's not on 100 acres, if there's not a lot severed off already, you could sever a lot off, a vacant lot if you want, like a small lot for a house, sell it, someone build a house. Or you could take your 100 acres and split it into the 250s. So it's a little bit more permissive than in the rural designation.
Thank you for your time, Ron. That answers my question.
Ron, it's John Woon again. Maybe I might be able to ask just a different question, since we're talking about severances of lands and stuff like that. What is the rule on properties of 25 acres and less?
For severances?
Yeah, so in terms of severances, how many properties are they allowed to put on there? What's the submitting process to get it approved? And are they allowed to come back after an approval and whack in a bunch more properties on that same property?
Yeah, Clint looks like he's chomping at the bit here.
Yeah, I'll maybe answer that. So keep in mind, we're talking about the rural and agricultural designations. So to just say a 25-acre parcel doesn't really mean much unless you tell us where it is in terms of what designation.
Specifically Wilder Lake Road in Varney.
Yeah, so that's what I thought you were thinking about, because
Yeah.
you mentioned you were in Varney. And so that's within a settlement area, actually. So a settlement area is different than the rural designation. So the settlement area deals with a different set of rules in terms of it looks at development as being more permissible, I guess, in higher concentrations, because that's where the province wants development to happen in terms of lot creation is within settlement areas. So if you looked at Varney, there's quite an area that's all pink, and it's not just the lots that have been created. Some of them are the larger lots that you see in this 25-acre one is one of them, and it does permit lot creation there. It allows up to a certain amount in terms of what they call infill or just consent development without going into what they call a plan of subdivision. When you start getting into needing 5 or 6 lots or what have you, then you start to have an internal road, and it gets a little more complicated, and therefore a plan of subdivision process is used, and that's how we would look at that. So you can see in Varney, there's a number of lots that are quite large. There looks to be a 50-acre parcel there, 25 acres. There's probably a 40-acre parcel there. So there's a lot of area for potential development in and around Varney. So anywhere within that pink, there is potential for development of lots, whether it's internal roads that go in there and utilize that area or what have you. But the limiting factor in a place like Varney is usually the servicing. So demonstrating stormwater management, demonstrating wells, and septic systems, and making sure that the proposed development, however many lots it is sustainable and doesn't impact existing lots from a safety point of view.
So if someone's come in and submitted an application to put in 3 lots and it's been approved, can they now come back and submit in for another 3 more lots and then get that approved and then submit for another 3 and thereby skirt the whole subdivision process?
Well, put it this way, it would be
sounds of it.
Not very easily, because unless there are people changing jobs regularly, we are going to know when those lots are created. Okay, so we can see that there's 3 lots that have been created there, and that's sort of the limit. And not to mention, after that, on that particular parcel, if they want to go beyond that, they are going to need a plan of subdivision because they can't access the other internal lands without a road. And as soon as you add some sort of road that you're expecting the municipality to take over, it's a plan of subdivision. So.
And then at some point somewhere in there, there's talk about removing of hills or something like that in some verbiage I read somewhere once upon a time ago. In order to get in there, are they allowed to break this hill down to put houses in? Or do they build the road up to the top of the hill? And how is that a safe route? I'm just unsure of how all that works.
Okay, well, with that particular scenario, they had to provide an engineered grading and drainage plan. And what that means is they have to show how they're going to grade the lot to gain access to it. And they may have to cut into the hill or whatnot to make sure that it's the sight lines for traffic are acceptable and in that the water flows properly. So that they can do that. It just depends on what their lot grading and drainage plan says.
Okay, I won't take up any more of this time. I'm sure there's other people that have other things they want to do. Maybe at some point you and I could perhaps have a separate conversation.
Sure.
I'll email you if you'd prefer. I can put my questions in an email if that makes it easier.
Yeah, that would be fine. cstredwick@southgate.ca.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to ask of Ron or Clint?
Yeah, just maybe a little follow up then. Am I okay to speak? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
My place is only like 40 acres, so there's some different rules apply then to this, a bit about the subdividing it or how I could apply the property or not, because it's not really a viable farm. Or
Yeah, so no, that doesn't help your cause if you designated it designated agricultural.
okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. So there's another, oh, go ahead, Clint.
I was just going to say, if there aren't any more questions right now, maybe we could show them the Dundalk map, which is a little more colorful, shall we say, in terms of it has different designations.
Councillor Shipston, I'm a little hesitant. I did remind members at the beginning, I know you weren't here, that we are just here for the public, but you can go ahead if you do have a question. I just want to make sure the public has all their opportunities.
No, I apologize for getting here late. I was
That's okay.
At work. But no, after everything is said with the public, something that I've been reading through it just piqued my interest. So if I may, after everything is done, ask a question to Clinton or Ron, or I can email them, but I'd rather have the public go so we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you. So Clint, do you want to review the Dundalk map, and that might start questions?
Sure. So I just wanted to point out a few things. One of the biggest things you'll notice is that in the right-hand side along Highway 10 there, we've added about 140 acres or so of new land into the Dundalk settlement area. That's the proposal. That part, the red area is the arterial commercial or highway commercial designation. And then we have a little portion that's designated industrial. And then another portion that is just been left as rural lands at the present time. And those lands are proposed to be included. It's going to require an amendment to the County of Grey official plan and a little bit of justification to include that. But that's one of the major changes. We've also removed, I guess on the west side and along Glenelg Street, some of the industrial lands that had previously been there that were these little one-off parcels that didn't really make sense anymore to be industrial lands. So we removed them out of that designation and made them into a neighborhood commercial, or sorry, a neighborhood area, which is basically our residential designation. So that's just some of the areas. Some of the gray areas there is along, you can see Eco Parkway, that's our industrial designation. And then the Hanbury Street is our smaller industrial area. And then when you get in towards Dundalk Street there's another older cluster of industrial, which is actually going to be removed out of the industrial and put in the downtown commercial, hopefully within the next couple of months, because that's where the medical center is going to go along that area. So there will be a official plan amendment actually coming in that may or may not be needed depending on when this gets approved for that. So that's one little change that you may or may not notice depending on the timing of this plan versus that official plan amendment. So did you have anything else you wanted to add, Ron? You're frozen.
Nope.
Is there any questions about the Dundalk map maybe?
I'm not seeing anyone jumping out of their seat.
It's a quiet bunch today.
It is. I'm gonna unmute. If you've called in, I'm gonna unmute you. Just, I don't want that to be an issue that maybe you can't speak. It shouldn't be, but if you've called in, you can talk if anyone's there that has called in.
Yep. It's Angela Lawton.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm sorry, I missed the very first part of your presentation. I was a little late hopping on. But with regard to your discussion, I'm in the Varney area near John, and it's interesting that our area is considered, I'm not sure what the term was, it is a settlement area?
Yes.
Okay. Are you all, and as we're talking about future, plans to go forward, are you all aware that there is a new owner of the Varney racetrack? And the noise from the track has increased absolutely exponentially this year. I have reached out to bylaw and will be sending council members letters as well. They were doing monster truck racing. Like, it's a significant change from the noise of the track over the 6 years that I've lived here. Is that something that the council is going to look at if this is an area that's going to be proposed for settlement? Because the two, trust me, they don't go together.
Clint or Ron?
So this is the first I'm hearing of that. Certainly at this stage, we haven't done anything in our official plan at this stage for that. If you say you've reached out to bylaw enforcement, has it been a long time since you reached out to them, or just recently?
I probably spoke with Bev Fisher about a month ago. I haven't sent all of you council members letters, honestly, because I've been very busy, but I definitely plan to this week to make sure everyone's aware. I believe I have spoken with Brian Milne about this earlier, but they're running, it used to be a Thursday night practice, a Saturday night race, and a Sunday night on a long weekend. They are now running 7 days a week during the day. They're running different types of cars. They're running louder cars. And like I said, I've lived here for 6 years and I've totally supported the track. But it was really, really bad, especially in the fall. And there was one day that I actually couldn't be outside. Like, I couldn't talk to anybody in my backyard. So I know our neighbors have reached out as well to bylaw. It's just something I want to put out there, especially if you guys are looking at doing a plan for moving forward, because unless there's something, I'm waiting to hear back to find out what the actual restrictions are in like the zoning for the track. And I have left a message with Mr. Fisher today to see if he's found that information, because it's definitely changed this year and not for the best.
Okay. Well, between Bev Fisher and myself, we can certainly follow up with the zoning and whatnot on that particular property and have a look. I kind of would like to go through the bylaw enforcement route as opposed to the official plan meeting here tonight, but thank you for making us aware of that. I will say that the Varney Speedway is a historical use, meaning that we don't actually plan for them necessarily. Like there isn't a zone, I believe, that actually permits racetracks anymore. That the zoning on that property is an exception to a commercial zone, I'm sure of it, to allow for the racetrack use. So it's a historical thing, whereas we wouldn't be planning for more, if you will. I can say that about that issue, but I think we'll leave it to the bylaw approach first and see what happens there. And between myself and Bev Fisher, we'll be in touch.
It's John Wynn again. I'm going to just jump in ever so briefly, and we won't get you to repeat yourself, but we couldn't hear the first, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes of whatever you were just saying. The connection on our end cut out between Angela and myself, and I don't know if anyone else did, but I will just back up a little bit on what Angela has said. This isn't the first time. We've been up here for over 30 years, and this isn't the first time we've had incidences with the Speedway. We've had people come out, they've done decibel tests. They've talked to previous owners about the cars having to be muffled. There was set times and stuff that were set in play of when they can and can't race. And it seems as each new owner takes over, and there's been probably 3 new owners in the last several years. I don't know if anybody on, and I mean this with all due respect, I don't know if anybody on your end is aware of these changes, but it just keeps constantly escalating in terms of volume. And Angela is not understating. You cannot physically be outside and have a conversation with somebody within 2 feet of you. You cannot hear them. We have this as a residential property, not as a 7-day-a-week racetrack. And it's completely unacceptable, and something has to be done. It can't just be left up to, we'll get back to you in a couple of months. If they're planning for their next year's events and everything else, it'll be a lot harder to claw it back then than it will be to do something sooner.
And if I may interject, and maybe that's a discussion like Clint said he can have. That's with all due respect, it's really not a discussion for tonight, like for the official plan. But you heard from Clint in saying he and Bev Fisher would look into this for you.
Thanks, Ron. I noticed a couple callers joined. Does anyone else that's maybe just joined have any questions? Or maybe people are just connecting with their phones because of connection issues, possibly.
I had lost all sound for the last 5 minutes.
Sorry, Angela. So we both Clint and Ron spoke about the Varney Speedway. So we just kind of wrapped up there that it is a bylaw enforcement issue right now. It really doesn't have a lot, unfortunately, to do with the official plan in this meeting, but between Bev and Clint, they'll make sure to get back to you, and we would pursue it that way through bylaw enforcement and the noise bylaw, perhaps. It's not so much an official plan thing, but thank you for making us aware of that, and we'll go from there on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks. So does anyone else have any questions about the official plan at this point? Or have anything they would like clarified or more information on? Okay, I'm not seeing much. Clint or Ron, did you have anything else to add tonight?
Yeah, just one thing, as being in the economic development back many years ago, really pleased to see that commercial zoning along the highway. We wanted more of it way back then. Is there ever any thought ever given to taking over the other side of the highway? We'd had some discussions way back about that.
So
that's all, just a question on that.
Sure, Jeff. I don't know if our CIO, Dave Milner's on the line. He might want to jump in. We are pursuing an annexation on a piece of property with the township of Melanchthon. Dave, are you?
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Jeff, I believe you were part of that when we bought the property on Highway 10, so it's developing along. And in actual fact, Flato Developments in Dundalk that are building the houses have purchased land on the other side of Highway 10, and we're in the process of, we've drafted a draft agreement, or created a draft agreement, and that is being worked with between Melanchthon and Southgate to start developing on the other side of the highway. It's going to take some time before, we go through the planning process and so on, but, possibly in 2020, late 2023, 2024, you might see some development happening over there, but there's a bit of process to go through.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. So I think unless anyone has anything else, I know Councillor Shipston did have something. I'm just wondering if he would be okay with maybe emailing or bringing up at a council meeting. I did just want to make sure this was just for the public, and I didn't want to not have other members feel like they weren't included if I did allow you to speak. So I apologize, Councillor Shipston, but if we can just keep that to when we bring this back to council, or email or call Clint or Ron would be great.
Yeah, that's fine. As I said, I came late to the meeting, and it is for the public, but I'll contact Clint.
Thank you, Councillor Shipston.
Yeah.
So does anyone else have anything before we wrap up the meeting? And I just want to add too, you can always send staff an email or give us a call if you need further clarification, or send Ron an email, and we'd be happy to answer any more questions. And like I mentioned before, this isn't an approval tonight or anything like that. It will come back in front of council in the new year. So with that, thank you, Ron, and for everyone attending tonight. And I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:07. And everyone have a great evening.
Thank you.